So, hi, I'm Kim Serafini, the founder, creator, inventor, CEO of Positive Prime. Positive Prime, the treatment, the intervention, the experience, the activity, yes, it's my idea. However, the platform and the app and the ecosystem and the infrastructure, well, that requires a gorgeous group of people, a team who are amazing and exceptional and fabulous and wonderful, one of whom is Jack Donaldson, who you might meet in this meeting. As our Chief Technology Officer. And of course, one of the other key people is Mayumi Kazu, who has worked with me day in and day out for more than 10 years, refining what it is that we're doing as we experiment and explore and as we make mistakes, huge ones, and as we get a few things really right. And so we're here together today to talk about all sorts of things. There'll be opportunities for questions and answers. But I'm going to make some assumptions, and so I'm going to do some screen sharing with you, and I'm going to get us started by laying the ground that I am working from an assumption that the people in this room know that Positive Prime is unique, it's rare and special and amazing and fabulous. It's scientifically solid. It is absolutely all about the flow state. In other words, we've done an incredible amount of research, which I'm actually going to try to describe to you in detail. A lot of us can hear something, but we need to hear it again and again. And sometimes when we hear something for the first or second time, we're hearing it with our own agenda at play. And so we'll hear what it is that we want to hear, not what is actually said. And so I'm going to try and repeat the salient points in various different ways throughout this meeting. The other thing is that I'm going to actually assume that you're all in the right place. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to share this particular slide. And once you've read it, or you want me to read it out aloud, I'm going to get you to actually just pop into the chat where you're coming from and yes, 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 yes. So basically 4 yeses. We are assuming you are not recording this in any way, shape, or form. You will not use it without our written permission in any way, shape, or form. That you will very carefully consider everything that I say. And in fact, if you use a tool like ChatGPT, you will have gone into your own settings and you will have personalized it and you would have said, please don't flatter me and tell me where my blind spots are, so that it's not an echo chamber to reinforce your own biases, right? Because ChatGPT will give you the answer sometimes that you want to hear, not necessarily what might be in your best interests. And of course, we're assuming that you have the capacity to participate in this meeting, or if you're actually watching the recording, you're doing so. And that if you're going to continue listening, you are in fact of sound mind and of legal capacity to make decisions. Because at the end of the day, we're going to ask you to make a decision. And that is, do you want to come on this journey with us? And there are several different pathways. So if you are driving, please turn your camera off so that you are not distracted and so that you don't distract the rest of the audience. But I'm going to also assume a few other things, shall I? And that is that you love Positive Prime. So before we do anything else, can you please tell me why you love Positive Prime? Just one reason. Why do you love Positive Prime? And then we're going to go back into the presentation. Why do you love Positive Prime? I believe, and I really firmly believe this, one could not, should not, will not find themselves in a position to benefit from earning via or through Positive Prime as an affiliate, or will be interested in becoming certified so that you can act as a Positive Prime professional practitioner, an ambassador or a spokesperson, or indeed a consultant, unless, of course, you actually love it. You're really passionate about what Positive Prime offers. Okay, so you do love the fact that it's inspiring. Yes, it is. Do you know what? I find it super inspiring as well. What else? What else? Oh, I love it that it provides a really imaginative way, a really creative and innovative way to tap into, to listen to witness, to observe, and to be an active participant in our own healing. And that it helps to integrate and create coherence, mind, body, soul, spirit, environment, and relationships. Thank you. All righty. So, shall we go back to screen sharing? Let's do this for the actual presentation. I want to begin with what is absolutely sensational, and that is our brand new AI-enabled identity shifting technology. Everybody who does our personal experience as an individual is, in my opinion, wanting to change or transform something or some area of their lives. And there is an enormous amount of science around if you can actually see yourself in the future achieving your goals, and you can think about how you would feel in that experience, and you can think about and feel what it took you to create that opportunity, to accomplish that outcome, then you are much more likely, the probability. There's an enormous amount of statistics we can go into, but this is not necessarily the teaching class. This is me simply showing you what we have on offer here at Positive Prime. We have a new part of our software available to everybody where you upload a photograph of yourself, and the one on the left is, of course, the one I uploaded. And then you put in a prompt. And so I put in, show me surrounded by a million fireflies. And then I thought, oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. And look how it's actually taken what I'm wearing and it's used that in the application. And then the second one was show me creating a flower arrangement. Because one of the things that I will do as a coach, as a therapist, as somebody who is caring for others, is that I will ask them to get very clear about what it is that they want in life. And a lot of people tell me they want financial freedom, or they want security, they want more money. And that's all well and truly fair enough. But the reality is that you don't want pieces of paper, or you don't want the ability to tap and go, given that, currency is mostly digital these days. You don't want money per se. You want what you think it's going to give you. And this is critical for you to actually truly understand that this is where I come from in terms of what we have designed and engineered within Positive Prime. So I imagine when I am financially free and secure, and I've got more investments that I could possibly want or need, and they're returning me income, interest income, passive income, and I actually get to do whatever I want, whenever I want, my day is my own, I might really like arranging flowers. That's one of the creative pursuits. And so I believe that Positive Prime is actually a platform, and it's something that you engage with that reignites your hope. But what's fascinating is that when you watch a Positive Prime session, because your brain is in synchronization for alpha and theta brainwaves, you're in a state of flow. You are much more likely to be in whatever we want to call it, a high vibration or a high frequency, connected to the divine, in the quantum. You're more likely to achieve what it is that you want, to manifest it, to make whatever needs to happen miraculously, magically, or by grit and perseverance and tenacity. But the reality is that you need your brain in a state of flow if you want it to be efficient and effective. And so when you see some photographs of yourself doing what it is that you want to be doing and being with whom you want to be with, and you see those images whilst you're in a state of flow, you have literally just created the most exquisite, efficient, and effective way for you to get what it is that you want. And highly likely to love what it is that you do want. So let me just really quickly show you something else about our new feature in our software. The photograph, of course, is the one I uploaded on the left. That is me. And I did one prompt. And actually, the result number 2, you can see looks like I'm in a white top and with my pearls around my neck. But I was thinking about, what do I want to experience the next year or 2 or 3 or 4? And the truth is, I would love to go to Canada and spend some time there. I've actually been to Toronto once. But can you see that the clothing in result number 2 is slightly inappropriate? It's not exactly what I would imagine I'll be wearing when I'm in a canoe on Lake Louise. I don't even know if you can actually be in a canoe on Lake Louise. Like, there are some sacred sites in Australia where I'm living. And in fact, you're not allowed a pleasure craft in some of these places for environmental protection reasons. So anyway, prompt number 1 was my second attempt. Show me wearing the right clothing for adventure and enjoying myself in a canoe on Lake Louise and being captivated with the majestic view. So prompting is actually an art. And one of the very strong, persuasive arguments I'm going to make to you is that your value as a coach and a client is actually going to be about the way that you guide people to think about the prompts when they interact with Positive Prime's AI feature. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that I think is absolutely, truly amazing. That's a photograph of my husband on the left. I uploaded that photograph. It happens to be at one of our favorite restaurants. We live in a beautiful little resort town called Noosa. And we were playing. And I want to literally help you to understand that I think that Positive Prime is a unique opportunity, a fresh and fabulous opportunity for our members to have some fun. It was almost like this playful date. We were lighthearted and joyful. And Cameron thought he was being super funny when I said to him, hey, come on, let's imagine. It's where the imagination is actually being ignited. And if you go and use a tool like ChatGPT and you enter this prompt, like, what is the value of imagination as a skill set in the modern day, you're going to find it's one of the keys. It's actually pretty important that we all get our imaginations flowing. We need to be sparked. We need to feel free to make mistakes, to investigate and to explore. We don't need to be right about the answers. We need to be engaged in the process. We need to be learning and observing, and we need to have insights based upon the experience of just trying and trying without expecting ourselves to get it right. So prompt number 1 was actually my idea. I wanted to see him in a garden setting in southern France. Maybe that's just projection. I wanted to be in a magnificent garden setting in the south of France, right? But interestingly enough, he said, okay, well, show me painting a masterpiece. And we had this incredibly connecting kind of conversation. Like, what is it that you really want to paint? He said, oh, something like Van Gogh's sunflowers. I said, do you really want to be painting sunflowers? And he said, well, actually, no, come on, Kimbo, let's make it the Mona Lisa. We've actually been to see the Mona Lisa in the Louvre together. It was an exquisite experience, a magnificent moment, one of those magical memories, and we're really grateful for it. And so the result number 1 showed up, and he went, no. Actually, why don't you show me in period costume and in a French, like a church? And I said, oh, well, what about a Catholic cathedral? No, he's not Catholic. Doesn't matter what he is. He could be Islamic, he could be Jewish, he could be a Hindu, he could be an atheist, doesn't matter. The point is that I believe that our software allows people to dream again and to have hope. And I think that that is actually priceless. We had so much fun doing this. He giggled and he laughed. And do you know what? Today is December 2025, and there's been a mass shooting on Bondi Beach in Australia, which is quite frankly, horrific and unexpected. There's also been a mass shooting at Brown University in the last couple of days. And my point is, I think the world needs to be much more lighthearted and playful and joyful and in the creative process and imagining, because I'm going to tell you something that's absolutely central to Positive Prime. It's based on a lot of different principles and concepts from a scientific point of view, one of which is Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory. And as a certified Positive Prime practitioner, I'm going to expect you to be able to explain to somebody who Dr. Barbara Fredrickson is, what the broaden and build theory is, and much more importantly, how we have applied it within Positive Prime. See, because you can use ChatGPT to learn everything today. You don't need me to teach you anything anymore. But the crazy thing is that even when you acquire the knowledge, even if you know, knowing is not enough. You need to have been able to do something with that knowledge. You need for it to be applied in your own life if you want different outcomes. Alrighty, so I'm going to show you prompt number 3 because this was even more fun. And this is the power of me being a therapist and a coach and using Positive Prime. I have my nephew staying with me over the weekend. And inside our new feature, you can just take a photo. And so the desktop literally has the camera that I'm using here right now. It's my computer in my office. And I took a photograph with the permission of his father, my brother, of my nephew. And do you know what? My brother was like, oh, show him doing a triathlon and winning. And I don't know if you know this, but right now the world championships are in Doha in the United Arab Emirates. Amazing. You should have seen his little face light up. You should have seen the eyes, the sparkle in them. And you should have seen what happened to his father's demeanor. I am telling you, that child can never unsee that and unfeel that. And we anchored him literally seeing himself winning. And then for a bit of fun, I asked him what would be like on your bucket list. And he said going to Antarctica. And we had a whole heap of fun with respect to what would he look like. And do you know what? He laughed, but I'm going to show you because I'm literally going to screen share inside the platform what the first result was. We got several results. All right, want to see something else? I uploaded a photograph of my brother and his eldest daughter, my niece, Lucy. And then I asked, what is it that you would love to be able to buy yourself? And he said, a jet ski is one of my dreams. And you should have literally seen his state shift. That is such an incredibly realistic photograph of my brother on a jet ski. And then I asked his son, what do you think your dad would love to do the most with his life? And his son said, fly a helicopter. And then I asked where, and he said, oh, over Queenstown. And I said, do you mean New Zealand? And he said, yes. I believe that Positive Prime is now an experience for creating connections that are profound and important and special. And I believe that we can facilitate these. And it's such a joy for us to be able to do so. So then I got to playing with another photograph of myself and what it's going to be like for me to be in a gown on the red carpet when we launch our documentary. And I was captivated with the process. Now, these are not images that I would ordinarily, these are not dresses I would choose. And this is the remarkable aspect of Positive Prime and of change. And I'm going to explain it because most people try to change based upon who they are. And who they are is not who they need to become to achieve what is in the future that they have not yet achieved. Because here's the truth. If they were already the identity, the collection of ideas and dreams and biases and unconscious biases and thought processes and habits and paradigms and belief structures and limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs, if they were all of that, of whomever they need to be to achieve whatever it is that they want that they don't yet have, the transformed version of whoever or whatever, guess what? They would have already accomplished it. And that's a very uncomfortable truth. If you were already who you needed to be, you would already have what it is that you think that you want. Whether that's you want to be financially free, whether that's you want to be in a great relationship, whether that's you want to actually have some kind of innovation, or whether you want to be doing nothing, whether you want to be an investor, an angel investor, a significant or sophisticated investor, whether you want to be sitting on your porch overlooking the mountains. Here's the truth. I believe positive prime is going to become the greatest competitive advantage and very much a survival must-have for 2026. Now, one of the things that I would like to do is just shift gears a little bit, because I'm going to assume a few things, and that is you're here to actually find out much more about how to be a practitioner and go through the certification process and what that actually means and is. But I absolutely am working on the basis that you have watched this particular preceding. Okay, thank you so much for nodding. I really appreciate. Erin, that's great feedback. Thank you. All right, so I'm actually going to assume that you've already been through that video. Now, the interesting thing is that over the years, we have been refining and enhancing and updating and upgrading everything about positive prime to actually get us to this point. Many years ago, we wanted to be able to go out there and we wanted to become like the greatest and the best and the biggest and the fanciest and the most well-known and the most popular. But do you know what? There was always these excuses as to the blocks that were holding us back from doing what it is that we wanted to be able to do in the marketplace. And we started the entire journey by thinking about what's on your bucket list. And we used a different word, and it's actually called your live list. Now you can actually, and I'm assuming Mayumi is taking these links and she's going to share them with you, or we'll put them in the chat. But you can buy the most amazing ebook. I'm actually literally going to flick through it for you so that you can see it's only $5. And I would use this as a resource with all of your clients. I think it literally is like phosphorus, you know, the red bit on the end of the match, and you strike it, and then it literally has this energy of its own. So let me just stop screen sharing for 1 second, and I'm going to change what I'm screen sharing and show you that particular ebook. See, I believe life is so incredibly precious and we have little time to waste. And we also don't have the inclination to actually do some of the things that we must do or we should do. And yet, to achieve anything requires a lot of, quite frankly, effort, as well as intellect, but energy and time. And so Mayumi and I set about actually thinking about, if you only had a couple of years left, what would you make sure that you did? What do you want to choose? Because it won't necessarily happen unless you decide what it is that you want, because you're going to have to make these sacrifices. If I do this, I might not be doing that. If we go in this direction, we might not actually be going in that direction. And I believe that one of the reasons why most people don't achieve whatever is on their vision board, in principle, is because they never got clear enough about what's actually important to them and what's important in their own lives. And so we started by, quite frankly, providing you with 500 ideas. Do you want to camp under the Milky Way in Namibia or where else? Do you want to now see yourself in that scene? The reality is that I want you to personalize the experience. There is an enormous amount of science that talks about the speed at which you can achieve your goals if you can actually see yourself. And we're going to talk about the visual cortex, the aspect of your brain that sees, and why that actually is way more important than necessarily what you hear or what you feel in terms of visual and auditory and kinesthetic if you're into the NLP kind of language or the neuro-linguistic programming kind of language, or we'll actually also talk a little bit about the basis of, say, hypnotherapy and flooding the person so that they give up and surrender and let go, and then allow in how we bypass the conscious critical judgment factors of the prefrontal cortex with positive prime because of the way that we've designed it. And so I actually love this process, but can we see, do you want to play golf at St Andrews in Scotland? Do you want to officially retire with confidence and a sense of calm? Do you want to own a sports car? No judgment, right? Absolutely zero. You can have whatever it is that you want in this life. You've got to pay the price for it in some way, shape, or form. There's got to be some kind of exchange energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and financially. Do you want to actually go on an entire month of eating absolutely no sugar? Or do you want to focus then mostly on eating greens? What is it? What is it that you could do? What is it? Do you want to wander through Angkor Wat? Do you want to visit a monastery in Greece or maybe Montenegro? The fact is I don't think people allow themselves to actually really think about what it is that they want. They don't get clear enough. And so then their reticular activating system, or their RAS, can't be on autopilot to actually sort and select and sift through every one of the 40 million bits of information that we take in per day, per second, through all of our senses to actually then like literally figure out what are the 40 bits we want to pay attention to, because that's what our brain's doing anyway. Isn't this an amazing idea? So this is one of the resources that we would actually suggest that you use. Now, I'm going to go all the way to the top because you can actually see there's a lot in 500. I don't think that anyone's going to run out. And if you've got some extra ideas, share them and we'll add them. Maybe we'll come up with 1,000. But what happened is I literally opened up the ebook and I thought about what would be on my live list and what I wanted to use our identity tool, our AI tool. And can you actually see here, achieve a stretch goal, completing a marathon. Now, I've never done that, right? So I actually thought to myself, do you know what? I'm actually going to use our AI tool and I'm going to see myself running a marathon. But then I looked down here and I said, be surrounded by a million fireflies. You've all now seen the result of what happened when I used that as the prompt. And then I just scrolled down a little bit more and see it says create a flower arrangement. I thought, yeah, wow, if I had time, I'd love to. I actually would love to spend some time with the professional, floral, artistic kind of professional who would help me how to do it without pricking my finger with all those thorns. Now, I may have actually volunteered once for a friend of mine who did own a flower shop during Valentine's Day. And I did actually think to myself, because I don't know if you know, if you get pricked enough by thorns from roses, you can actually end up with this incredible infection that travels up your arm, which is pretty dangerous. But anyway, I now know that because I've seen that in real life. All right, so let's go back and let's actually focus on the fact that you can become a positive prime professional first and foremost by going through our certification and going through our materials. And there are going to be classes where we discuss what does each one of the elements mean? How does it translate? How are we actually applying it? You've got to be able to talk about it with people, because something incredible happens when I present positive prime. And that is, I really know the fundamental building blocks of a session and why a session actually does work. And I also know how to address all of the objections that people come up with. Like, the fact is, there are people who could come up with their own PowerPoint presentation and have a whole heap of images of some happy smiley faces. But the point is, their unconscious biases will choose those images and then they'll reinforce everything that keeps them away from whatever it is that they want to achieve. So a positive prime session is essentially a way for you to express your wisdom. It's words that are suggestions and advice, and the other than consciousness is actually receiving those and playing with them. And then the brain is going off in search of evidence to support those new beliefs. find the scaffolding. And that's actually what's critical. So for teachers or for people who are involved in learning and development, the fact is your brain will process the information that it's learning, and it will do so in the flow state because the information is contained within a positive prime session. And so the actual information or the knowledge is being acquired. The change process is actually happening while somebody's in the flow state. That is what is so exquisite, exceptional, and excellent about positive prime from a learning and development perspective. But at the end of the day, you want somebody to actually do something with the knowledge that you are going to share with them. And so what you need is for that person to have their identity shaped around these new beliefs. And that means they need to see themselves in the content. And so creating a session, if you're a therapist or you're a teacher, is very important, but it's literally only one component of why a positive prime sessions experience will actually facilitate transformation and change. So in our certification, we do explain exactly what the building blocks are and why the brain is in the state of flow. And I believe that if you want to be taken seriously as a professional, I believe you've got to actually understand how and why it works. Now, the truth is, your clients don't necessarily need to know how and why it works, but if they ask you, I think from a credibility point of view and from an integrity point of view, you probably want to be able to be very strong and firm and confident and clear about what it is that you know. So there is this incredible document for you to read, and I don't want to take this precious time you going through this document. I want to answer your questions after you've had a chance for doing so. But what I want to tell you is that in Boston at our summit, I learned something even more incredible about a positive prime session. And this is where I think we're going in terms of why positive prime is going to be so hot, like so in demand, and why it might be that you would want your content expressed within a positive prime session and available via our platform. And so the interesting thing is that I could actually just tell you that the certification program is, quite frankly, it's 3 classes in 1 week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then it's 3 classes in the next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I'm always referring to my own time zone, which is Noosa, Queensland, Australia. We're a little ahead. So at this time, which is around about 10 a.m., because this is live at the moment, you can actually do the calculation for what it means the day before if you're in North America, and it's usually the middle of the night in Europe. And so you're going to get the certification program for sure. You're actually going to get a session created. It's actually a very complex process. If it was so easy, quite frankly, in the last couple of years, people would have been able to figure it out, backward engineer it, and they wouldn't need us. But the reality is that even if they did that, they wouldn't have the solid scientific underpinning that's going to be really important from a credibility point of view. Alrighty, so let's just go back and explain that every single person who becomes a Positive Prime member has access to this book. Do they need you as a practitioner to explain what and how and why Positive Prime works? No, not necessarily, if they actually read the ebook that is available to every single person who ever becomes a member. Every single person who ever becomes a member of Positive Prime actually has access to this ebook. They can learn all about a Positive Prime session, how and why it works. They actually don't need you. And you don't even need to do the certification to acquire the knowledge. I can tell you, go use ChatGPT and learn everything you need to know about Dr. Barbara Fredrickson and the broaden and build theory. That's not the point. The entire point of our practitioner program is so that we can share ideas with ourselves in community, share ideas amongst ourselves in community about what's working and what is actually helping us to create incredible transformative changes in our clients' lives by using positive prime. Like, what are we doing? What are we saying? What do we notice somebody's actually much more interested in? Why? How are you presenting it? So the interesting thing is that every single positive prime member has access to this ebook. They can figure out what and why and how it works. They can read it. Will they? Will they? Do they want you to actually just explain in an initial consultation? Should you charge to share everything that they can learn in a book? Well, let me just ask you, do you think the people who write best-selling books, how-to books, of which there are millions, do you think that they also continue to go out there and speak on stages and all the main messages that are in their books are also shared? Yeah, because some people like to read and some people don't. And so I do think that, quite frankly, you as a positive prime practitioner, you probably actually want to leverage the fact that you get your own session inside our platform. All right. Let's move on, because the thing I want you to take away from today is that whilst somebody is transforming and changing, they are also healing, because there is no other product on planet Earth, not one, that allows you to use it as a vision board with AI now integrated, that allows you to use it as a gratitude journaling process, whilst at the same time having your eyes process images that send messages, and your HPA access literally then sending messages to your immune system. And there is nothing else on planet Earth that can reliably work in a very dependable way. Within a few seconds, the process starts to cascade, and within 3 minutes, you have an effect inside the body. And we get to know a lot about psychoneuroimmunology from Dr. Esther Sternberg. Now, Dr. Esther Sternberg is one of the pioneers, but in the original certification program that I was running, I'd never even heard of Esther Sternberg. I hadn't come across her work, and so I couldn't possibly share who she is with everybody else. And the amazing thing about the positive prime professional community and practitioners and people who are on this journey is that I can pretty much assure you that this year, last year, and next year, there'll be somebody new like Esther Sternberg who will shake everything up in terms of what is going to become poignant and necessary in the marketplace in terms of us meeting demand. So the reality is that in the 2026 first group, and I imagine we will do this several times in 2026, but in the first group, we're actually really going to focus on you understanding that a positive prime session is literally one of the solutions you can provide to anybody who has an inflammatory response within their body to stress, anxiety, panic. That inflammatory response is their immune system not being able to cope because their nervous system is dysregulated. Right? Now, here's the crazy thing about positive prime. Within a very, very, very short period of time, what is actually happening is your eyes are processing information, these visual images, and there's a variety of them, and there's a certain number of them, and your eyes are literally ensuring that the messages are received and processed through the HPA access, going to bolster your immune system by regulating your autonomic nervous system on the way. That is the most incredible gift. So when you encourage somebody to become a positive prime subscriber, when you encourage somebody to become a member and you charge an initial consultation fee and you explain to them how it works, you actually guide them through identity change. Like, the reality is that there are so many people who don't necessarily understand that they're not going to achieve the change that they're looking for unless there's a change in their identity. and they're not going to be able to change their identity unless they actually use a process and they're engaged in an activity that allows them to see themselves in a desired future that's different from where they've been or what they've been doing. But what's amazing is whilst this is happening, they're going through a reset and they're going through a recovery process, and their brain is doing something that it's designed to do, but modern life doesn't let us do. The assault, the abuse, the overwhelm, the overloading, the amount that we can quickly see through a scroll, our brains were never intended to process that much. I said this in a previous presentation, but maybe I need to say it again. 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, depending upon what you want to believe, there were people who were really interested in fitness. And they were slowly but surely convinced that they needed to reach their maximum heart rate when they were exercising. And they were slowly but surely convinced that actually their maximum heart rate's not really as important as resistance, the amount their strength training, right? And then they were slowly and surely convinced that your resting heart rate is really important, and that your recovery from your maximum heart rate to your resting heart rate is critical. That's a little bit of information, your recovery rate. And everybody was convinced, even in the corporate world, that if you wanted a peak performing executive, somebody who was leading a team, they also had to be fit. And it became key in a recruitment process, in a promotion process. And so the people who were rising in the corporate ladder, they had to be seen to be fit. And then the higher you got, the greater the risk was that you'd be out of the office, the more the company then got you to do your own physical assessment, and that was included in your remuneration package, and that became legal. I believe we are literally at the foundation of what is going to be the next phase. And I believe that you want to position yourself as one of the early adopters and one of the leaders, one of the pioneers, one of the people at the forefront. But I believe you've got to know how and why a positive prime session helps to facilitate brain recovery, and why brain recovery is more important than heart recovery rates. Now, the truth is your brain and your autonomic nervous system sends messages essentially even to your heart. And for those of you who know me, you'll know that I unfortunately have had to dive very deep into this subject because of the experiences that I've been through and the conditions that I face and the reasons why I have a pacemaker. But people think I had a cardiac arrest or a heart attack, and I absolutely did not. Yes, my heart flatlined, it stopped. I was neurologically unconscious. I was medically dead, but it had nothing to do with my heart. My heart, when they put me in a cardiac MRI, you can use ChatGPT to understand the cardiac MRI process. Not pretty. Didn't enjoy it. When I was in the cardiac MRI, they went, oh my gosh, Kim, your heart is so amazing. You are so healthy. Your heart is so healthy. There's no structural damage or problems. There's no electrical damage or problems. There's no functional damage or problems. So why did my heart stop? And why, when your heart is stopped and your brain is no longer getting any oxygenated blood, why, Kim, are you not brain damaged? How is it that my brain came back online? Why is it that my brain was resilient? But what does that mean for me? Because we know for a fact from the research that's being done that people who've experienced quite a lot of trauma in their lives, first responders in particular, when they feel appreciated, that's really important to them. But when we've all forgotten 5 or 10 or 15 years later what they did, and we're no longer giving them more affirmations and adulation and adoration and, appreciation, the drop off is actually, it's almost like, is it better to have loved and to have never been loved at all? And what we lose, we don't actually really understand. So what's interesting is that all of this incredible research has actually shown that these first responders have much higher rates in a longitudinal study of dementia and cancer. Now let's extrapolate that out. I just believe that positive prime is a beautiful process that allows your brain to recover every single day, and you build up this resilience. And it's called cognitive flexibility and cognitive adaptability. But before we started doing the scientific research with the Brain Computer Interface Lab and Dr. Avinash Singh and his team at the University of Technology, Sydney, guess what? I didn't even really know very much about cognitive adaptability or neuroadaptability and cognitive flexibility, but I think that these are going to be the super buzzwords. Like, I actually saw, if people are into functional medicine and they follow, I don't know, for example, Dr. Mark Hyman, you might have noticed that about 3 or 6 months ago, if you're in the space that is wellness and peak performance and leadership and so forth, everybody started talking about allostatic load. It was a word that not many people had even heard of, right? Now people seem to really understand that that's a very key concept, and it's totally associated with longevity. And longevity is the new buzzword everywhere, and everybody's into, particularly in the worlds that I live in, investing in clinics or spaces, environments where you go in and you do a sauna. Either it's a far infrared sauna or it's a traditional Nordic sauna, and then you actually go in and you do a cold plunge and then a warm plunge. So cold water immersion, there's a lot of new science coming out about it. And then there's ice bath, and then there's steam rooms, and all of a sudden people are really like, oh, wow, this is just like the most important thing we've ever come across, and it's absolutely critical to recovery. And I agree, by the way. And yet I went to one on Sunday, only a couple of days ago. It cost $65 to go to the newest version locally for me to basically do this protocol that then took around about 20 minutes in the sauna. And all people will say, oh, you shouldn't do that because you've got a heart problem. No, I don't have a heart problem. Actually, I have an autonomic nervous system issue. Nothing to do with my heart. Yes, I have a pacemaker. Still nothing to do with my heart. Have to actually really focus on brain recovery. Brain recovery, because guess what? That's what impacts your nervous system. And guess what? That's what impacts your immune system. And guess what? Anybody who has an autoimmune disease has a brain problem, not a gut problem. They have a brain problem. They need positive prime, because the way that you actually access the brain, you help to shape it, you massage it, you nurture it. Guess what? It's through the eyes. Positive prime. But guess what? The brain doesn't process it as important or pertinent or relevant unless it's personalized. You could do all the meditation in the world by listening to all the most amazing meditations guided on apps, but they're just standard MP3s, audio files you listen to, not anywhere near as effective as positive prime's visual intervention that is a treatment for your autonomic nervous system, because it's a visual intervention. First and foremost, yes, do you know what? You can mute the music and you can have Spotify on and you can listen to whatever you like, whether that's Tibetan flute music or that's hard rock. It's whatever makes you feel great, right? So in the modern era, or in 2026 and beyond, because of AI and because of the speed at which we're getting these responses, I actually don't need to teach you anything. And you don't need to learn anything from me. Let's just be honest. Use ChatGPT for it. But what you probably want is to leverage the Positive Prime platform, because nothing else is going to get the results for your clients in an elegant, reliable, scientifically solid, dependable, rapid way that's personalized. I mean, That's what's special about positive prime, to be honest with you. And I haven't come across anything else on planet Earth that is a visualization experience, whilst it's an amplification of thankfulness and appreciation and gratitude. And it's also impacting what's going on. And we want to share these resources with you. But if you didn't even know that the hypothalamus is involved in the way your immune system responds, and if you didn't even know that inflammation like arthritis is actually your immune system playing up, and you didn't know that that was related to your brain, you're looking for all these other solutions for your arthritis problem, and you could be watching Positive Prime. Now, I'm not saying don't take magnesium supplements, and you've heard me say that before if you were in this community, right? Yes, take magnesium supplements, particularly if you're a woman who's kind of looking like you're in a similar age group to me. Right? Make sure you take the right type of magnesium. You don't need me to tell you what that is. Use ChatGPT or any one of your other versions, right? There is all sorts of different AI bots these days, whether it's Manus and it's the Chinese version, or whether it's Grok or it's this, that, and the other. Okay, so where are we at? I think we're at a turning point. And I have just presented Positive Prime to a group of people, some of whom have been HR directors for some of the largest companies in the world. I want you to think of the largest petrochemical companies in the world. I want you to think of the largest fast-moving consumer goods companies in the world. And the thing they care about most is recovery rate in the brain. And do you know why? Because they know that decision-making in organizations is the Achilles heel. And what a positively primed brain can do when facing a puzzle is solve the puzzle accurately and more quickly, and that's scientifically proven. Now, the speed at which your brain gets into the positive prime state is actually, quite frankly, what's sensational about what I'm just about to say. So if I was to tell you that the research team is actually doing some work around positive priming of air traffic controllers in the defense sector, as in the Air Force, what you would know is that their cognitive overload is much higher than the average person. Well, Positive Prime and we as a company and the ARC grant that we have and the research that we're involved in over the next couple of years, none of this can happen at the click of a finger. What we're actually doing is making sure we're working initially with a cohort of people who actually are under extreme cognitive overload so that we can test and refine Positive Prime as we go along. But here's what you need to know today. Today it works for you and me. So we got these people and we negatively primed them. By the way, we had ethics approval. The University of Technology Sydney is a fine institution of incredible reputation and credibility. So we got ethics approval, we got participants, and we negatively primed them. And then because priming is already an area of science and positive primes have already been proven in science, various different positive primes, what we did was we broke the participants into two groups and we used what is an instrument, a treatment or an intervention that's been verified as a research approved process to positively prime people. And then with the second group, we got them to watch like Kim Serafini's version of a positive prime. And the speed at which the brain waves changed, because we had EEGs on them, we had eye tracking, we had skin conductance, we had heart rate variability. The speed, the recovery rate is what is very valuable. So there might be some other things that you can do out there to help your body recover or your brain recover. But I can pretty much assure you there's going to be nothing else that will do it at the speed of a personalized positive prime in 2026. So you have a moment in time to leverage what it is that you've got, and a positive prime practitioner can do an initial consultation at a price, whatever it is that you choose, to explain to somebody the benefits and the advantages of positive priming, and you can go through the platform with them. That particular client will pay what the membership price is, and you'll receive your 20% commission from the tool. But you're really making the money from the connection and the relationship you have with the individual that you're introducing to positive prime. Okay, so where this gets interesting is when people want huge groups to positively prime themselves in organizations or associations or in companies and so forth. And what we have discovered thus far is that most of those types of, let's call them enterprise buyers, they want a discount, like a group bulk discount on a subscription for an individual. And the question is, at what point is that in positive prime's best interests? Or should we just actually work with practitioners who are sharing positive prime with individuals? And should those individuals be paying the annual subscription price? And should those practitioners be receiving the 20%? And should we actually allow anybody who's not a certified positive prime practitioner to make 20% from recommending to somebody else positive prime? Should the affiliate be required to be certified? Does it matter? What happens as we water down or we spread this and it goes far and wide? What are our pathways to market? So the interesting thing is that a lot of positive prime practitioners do view their session on our platform as an opportunity for marketing and promotion, because you're seen alongside of all of these other sessions that are on the platform. And then many more people will get to know who you are and could be curious about who you are. And as we go through the next couple of years and we add a marketplace to our platform, because you can see we've been adding a few things to our platform over the last couple of months, if you've been a member of the last couple of months, that might be the reason why you want to be a positive prime practitioner, because you actually just want the marketing or the promotion or the sales opportunity, right? I can't decide what you want it for. I can only tell you what works for me. But I want you to be in community with positive prime practitioners who are sharing their stories about how they use it with either their audiences or one-on-one, if they're a qualified counselor or a social worker or a therapist or somebody who is a spa manager or somebody who is the team leader in a sales organization. Do you know what I mean by that? Okay, so are we ready for some questions? Because you've been listening ever so politely and you've all been so courteous. I'm going to start this by saying, if you already know how to sell positive prime into an organization, you don't need me to teach you. The license that you have as a positive prime practitioner is to sell positive prime to individuals or groups of individuals who will pay full price as an individual. And in 2026, that price will be $199 for the year. All members can choose to pay monthly as well, right? So a positive prime practitioner can sell positive prime to as many people as they like for $199 and receive their 20% commission so long as they use their referral code and their link, or whichever one is appropriate in that marketing situation. If you want to sell positive prime as a bulk solution to an organization, that requires a different license and an enormous amount of infrastructure added to the process. And that's a completely different story. But I don't want to have any conversations with anybody about positive prime in organizations at a discounted price off the full recommended retail price for an individual, unless that person is a positive prime practitioner who's been through the certification. And I think that that's fair. Anybody disagree with me? I think that the pathway is you cannot and should not be able to do the certification program and have a session until you are actually a passionate, committed, positive primer and your daily streaks are great. I think that once you're actually a member and you love positive prime and you've read through the book that all members can read through and you understand a little bit more about positive prime, maybe you want to dive into the certification program because you want to actually refine your knowledge and you want the opportunity to ask some questions, but much more importantly, you want the opportunity to talk with some other positive prime practitioners, because by the way, there's already 300 of them, some of whom have already introduced positive prime, either as a lead magnet or as the main feature in a keynote presentation. I mean, that's the point, right? There are so many people who have already introduced this. One of the best examples is Lisa Barnett. And Lisa Barnett, she has a great school that teaches people essentially how to read the Akashic records. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are guided by her. She recommends and suggests that positive prime be a part of the process in terms of connecting to the quantum, raising your frequency and vibration. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are in the positive prime community because Lisa Barnett, in all of the presentations that she does to groups of people, suggests that people have her positive prime session. Now, her positive prime session is available because it's linked to her referral link or her code. So hundreds and hundreds of people can go through the process to create an account, and forever they get to keep her session. They don't get to keep the ability to personalize her session unless they're a subscriber, right? So personalizing is available only to active subscribers who are paying. Fair enough? All right. Shall we dive into some questions and answers yet? Do you want to unmute yourself if you have a question? Do you want me to very quickly show you something absolutely remarkable about our new platform? I'm going to say yes before we go there, so you can organize your thoughts. Shall we do that? All righty. So our streaks were basically a new feature that was requested by our community, and we love them. And it's interesting actually because there are some amazing people who've been watching Positive Prime every single day. So I'm going to just refresh. I'm logged in. What I'm showing you is available on the platform via a web browser. Okay, on the platform via a web browser. So the positivity feed, you scroll down and there's all sorts of goodness in here. Reverend Karen Russo, an amazing woman, a best-selling author. Oh, look, there's one about achieving goals. Should we actually just try this, or should we go up and do Reverend Karen Russo? Well, given that I've just been talking about Lisa Barnett, maybe we'll do her session. So I can either go over here and simply put in Lisa. Oh, look at that. One session. align to your soul's plan. Now, interestingly enough, we're going to generate a vision. And I'm going to show you exactly what happens. You go through a step-by-step process. You can literally see that I could give it a prompt like, show me cooking in Italy, or show me cooking in Tuscany, Italy, or show me cooking in Japan, or any one of a number of hundreds and hundreds of ideas. You need to upload a photograph of yourself, or guess what? Take one of yourself. So I don't know if any of you are noticing this, but see this? These are photographs because I did take photo just before. Can you see? This is exactly what I'm wearing right now. Have you noticed this? All right. So this is a photo of me. I'm just simply going to select it. And I'm going to, you can see I've been playing. I could take a photo, or I could upload an image. I'm going to continue to the next step. I'm going to say, show me in a cooking class in Japan. An example, right? I'd love to go to Japan. And it uses a credit. And one of the key messages I really want you to take away is that Jack has ensured that behind the prompt is an upgrade and an enhancement, an optimization to make sure that we get the best result for you out of where AI is at the moment in terms of image generation. If you use another AI tool, oh, look at that. Don't you think that that looks like me? Amazing, hey? Okay, so I'm going to adjust the prompt. Show me in a cooking class in a Japanese setting with a magnificent view of the countryside in Japan. Because I might actually want something a little bit more exotic than that. Generate vision. And so each time you do a prompt, you're using another credit. Let's see what happens here. You can do this as many times as you like.
How many credits do you get, Kim?
Every single Positive Prime member receives as a gift 5 credits at the moment, right? Now, when the price increases at the end of this year, because at the moment there's a holiday special. So a Positive Prime membership right now is 50% off. Oh, look at that. What do you think? Do I think that's believable? I kind of do, actually. Interesting. All right, so I've actually done show me presenting Positive Prime and in Sydney, and there's this, I know Sydney well, so I know this is background. I actually did a couple of different versions, like show me in adventure hiking gear on a magnificent walking journey in Iceland's rugged scenery. I did exactly the same, show me in adventure hiking gear, same words, on a magnificent walking journey in Switzerland's mountains. And I love these photos, right? So for me, I can literally go back and have a look at all of the different ideas I've had. So I want you to start to imagine what you could do with your clients. This is a process that is fun and lighthearted and playful and gives them hope, right? And helps them to get clear about what it is they want. It lets them explore. It lets them be creative and imaginative. And I showed you this before, after Cameron's painting of the Mona Lisa, I actually did my own. Show me drawing something beautiful, engaged in flow, loving the creative process and environment that's stunning. Oh, inspiring. And I thought, this is actually a dress I do own. It's unlikely I'm going to be painting in that dress. And so I actually tried a different one, and I said, well, wearing some flattering clothing that's good for artistic endeavors in a Medici villa in Florence, Italy. Oh, I love that. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm not actually also uploading my own photographs into Positive Prime. But I can go here to all of the images that are AI generated. And we just did a new one. So I'm going to do this for a cooking class. This is me winning an award. This is me in an editorial on the, red carpet. This is me presenting. So these are all AI generated. And it's in the AI generated folder, right? This is me in that painting one I just saw you. But I've done so many more fun versions of Positive Prime. Me signing my own books, me on a sailing yacht in Europe, me in a castle in Scotland, me jogging, and by the way, this was like a version of me doing, quite frankly, the marathon one I was talking to you about before. And so I select them, but I've still uploaded a lot of photographs, right? I've uploaded a lot of photographs and see they're in here. And you know what? If I don't want these ones, I can just deselect them all. They're all in this folder because I put them in this folder. And so I've deselected all of those ones that are there. Now there's only 40 images, right? So if I now go back to AI generated, I can now go back and I can have a little look at which are the ones that I really do want to see. The point is that every Positive Prime session is more powerful if you personalize it. And I really want our Positive Prime practitioners to know the science around personalisation. Personalisation is key. It's actually really key to transformation, to change management. If you're not involved in the process, you actually will have all sorts of resistance that will hold you back. So I want for you as a practitioner to be able to help your clients with their breakthroughs, with something that is groundbreaking and something that is truly world-class and scientifically solid. Fair enough? Fair enough. All righty. So one of the questions might be, when is the Positive Prime certification classes going to begin? And what's the special price? So because I know that what we have is very, very precious and valuable and rare and unique and truly differentiated, and because the process of creating your Positive Prime session is extensive, it requires we work with you, you understand how to write your own self-fulfilling prophecies, and then we actually have 800 images that resonate with your 200 statements. We go through that process with you. All of that, basically, our Positive Prime Professional Practitioner Program is $5,000. And we think that that is really good value. But what we're going to do is we're going to do something fabulous. Ready for it? We're going to give you $10,000 worth of inventory so that you can actually give Positive Prime inside your program to an individual. What that essentially means is you will be able to charge your clients for their Positive Prime access. You'll include it in the program. You might even use it as a value add. That's up to you. But you'll have 50 seats that you can provide for the year. So that's $10,000 worth, and it's included inside your package. So instead of you coming to us and saying, hey, I want to get these 50 people to buy a subscription and I want to earn my 20%, can we do a deal right now where I can actually include it for 50 of my clients and I can get them to pay me direct inside my program? And then we will give you the link that allows you to literally have those people create an account. 50 people will be able to create an account that is an annual account. So it's $10,000 worth of inventory, which we think is super generous. And that hopefully sweetens it. So you go, well, you know what? What I'm really doing is I'm paying $5,000, but I'm actually receiving $10,000 worth of inventory that I can provide right away to my clients. But what we're going to do, because it's December, it's the holiday season, is that we're actually going to offer anybody who becomes a Positive Prime subscriber, first and foremost, who then decides to actually become a practitioner and wants to participate in the certification program, that begins in the first week in February. We're going to give you the resource book for you to read between now and then. So you're going to have more than enough time over the next 6 weeks for you to read the entire resource book, the reference book, which will actually make sure that we enrich the connection process during the actual certification program. So you get to actually know the other practitioners and you hear from them what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. And interestingly enough, as a team, what we actually believe is that you will highly likely work with clients who will want to create AI-enabled, identity-changing future visions for not only themselves, but also their family members, maybe even their team members or their students. And so we actually do believe you'll end up making a small fortune out of your 20% commission from people buying credits. And we've just done all of the work that gives you that opportunity. So it happens automatically once the people who are in Positive Prime, and even if you've gifted them their Positive Prime membership or you've made them pay for it inside your program, when they buy extra credits, and we've actually started to notice that people have bought extra credits, you'll also receive 20% commission because you're a Positive Prime practitioner. And all of that is possible for only $999 at the moment. And all of it is possible even if you want to pay for it on a monthly installment plan. If you want to pay for it on a monthly installment plan, then we are going to organize that with you manually. It's not going to be facilitated through the program. But we have to basically share with you that if you're on a monthly installment program, you don't receive the $10,000 worth of inventory. Because that $10,000 worth of inventory is actually for those people who pay their $999 up front. That's the special bonus. Good idea? Great idea? Alrighty, so I know that even if I was to use ChatGPT to create my own vision photographs, the results are terrible compared to what the Positive Prime platform does, because we've been practicing and experimenting and trialing. And I am so proud of Jack for creating an engine where behind the scenes, he's optimized the process so that your clients, whomever they are, or your students or your team members, whoever they are actually going to have a great process when they create their own AI vision photographs to include in their own Positive Prime session. Let's let that land. It's so convenient. It really sizzles. But I also know that the majority of people who try with New Year's resolutions fail, not necessarily because they have a willpower problem or they have a discipline problem. They have a dysregulated nervous system. And when we have dysregulated nervous systems, it is actually really hard for us to be disciplined. And most of us can't escape our 4 children or our 4 grandchildren or our bosses or our team members or our mortgages or the news about terrible acts of terrorism in places like Bondi Beach. And that truly is one of the things that I think makes us stand out. You can actually have a nervous system support. for next to nothing and an entire year's access. And whilst that daily reset and recovery is occurring, you're also having your reticular activating system conditioned so that you're more likely to achieve your goals, and you're in a state of flow, and you're more creative, and you're going to make better quality decisions. They're going to be more accurate. And I don't know if you've already played with the flexibility test inside the Positive Prime Positivity feed, but if you haven't, you definitely want to. You definitely want to. And maybe you want to do it on the 1st of January and again on the 31st of January, and just see if daily viewing of personalized Positive Prime sessions has actually helped you. The more confident you are that you've got an incredible tool. You can use it in the car. You can use it at your desk. You can use it and it works inside 3 minutes. Almost every single day, I literally open the app. First thing in the morning. I didn't do that until very recently because we didn't have an app that was as beautiful as it is until very recently. It was always a little more difficult. There were always these little friction points that would get me into the habit of positive priming. It is so easy now. I literally pick up my phone, I open the app, and I have a practice, which means no matter what the first session is in the positivity feed, I literally watch that session. And then I might go and watch somebody else's session or my own session or a session that relates to one of the 300 subjects or the subject that I'm actually like secretly working on for myself right now. Is it that I need to be more forgiving of myself or others? Or is it that I need to be more patient with myself or with others? Or is it actually, you know what? I need to fire up and claim that 2026 is my breakthrough year in terms of my own finances. Whatever it is, right, you get to choose. But I don't know another platform that enables you across nutritional nurturing and getting fitter and also improving your creativity and actually addressing your social anxieties all within the one platform, and integrates you into that change management process. I think it's extraordinary. I really do. Who's ready to ask a question? Who's ready to ask a question? No questions? Come on.
Hi, Kim, it's Erin.
Hello, Erin.
I've actually got a myriad of questions, and so I won't ask them now because I've got a lot I need to think about.
Erin, can I ask you if you would like us to edit you out of the recording? We're more than happy to. But, you know, I think your questions will serve a global community of other people who have similar questions. Would you be willing to ask some of them and let me answer them?
Look, I mean, my questions are probably more around me and me doing this. I've only been using it for a few days, and I already feel an enormous shift in my cognitive thinking, and I'm already racing ahead in my brain about how I can see this really coming out to the world. You know, I spent I spent over 20, 30 years, 25, 30 years as a corporate executive, and I just look, I just think what you've created is extraordinary. And I've also, and I don't mind sharing it, spent over 15 years and invested a small fortune on recovering from none of the programs, none of the training, none of the teachers, nothing I have done has given me tools to rewire my brain. And this really, to me, is a game changer. And I have followed all the major practitioners in the world. You name it, I've watched them, done their programs, listened to them, and I just think this is next level. So
thank you, Erin. That means, look, what a wonderful blessing to hear this. And look, Mayumi's just done because for Jack and Mayumi and me and several others who've been in this community, like some of the other people who are here, like Shirley Wembley, I know your camera's on, so we know we can see you, right? She has been involved in this process, Erin, for more than 5 years. But she was also incredibly clever. When she first saw it, she has a rather large business in Alaska, the United States of America. And she literally immediately thought, wouldn't this be great for all employees in this customer-facing business to be involved in? And particularly because where they are in Alaska, in December, there are all of these seasonal affective disorder issues as well. There's also isolation because where they are in Alaska is actually a small island cut off from the rest. True, Shirley? But Shirley has a background and qualifications and a career essentially beginning in medical treatments, diagnoses and diagnostics. True, Shirley? So she instantly understood the potential parapositive prime. And Erin, do you know what? 5 years ago, we hadn't done that piece of initial research with UTS. What we had done is a prior piece of research in the United States with Sean Acor and his wife, Michelle Gillam. And Sean Acor was at Harvard Business School and working with Tal Ben-Shahir in the School of Positive Psychology around the science of happiness. So positive prime has gone through this evolution where we thought it was a science of happiness solution. And we had a lot of people interested in rolling it out into organizations. And Sean Acor, he is a gorgeous human. And he had just done a deal with Oprah Winfrey to create the Science of Happiness e-course. And Oprah Winfrey then sold that as a package to Google, and 50,000 employees got to do the Science of Happiness course, beautifully produced at obscene expense, but with Oprah and Sean. Because Sean was Harvard and a very good-looking young man with beautiful blue eyes. And he was also friends with Kobe Bryant, rest his soul in peace. And so there was this celebrity factor, and Oprah harnessed that and leveraged it. But guess what the tool was inside their course? Positive prime. This little thing that Kim Serafini created. But back then, I didn't have the infrastructure that protected my own intellectual property. And I didn't have a license agreement, and I received not 1 cent from that. I mean, the bragging rights are worth something. Right? So where we've been at with positive prime is Oprah, like literally the executives at the Oprah Winfrey Network, OWN, they required independent, objective efficacy testing of positive prime before they would allow it into that e-course. And so the institute that does the research around essentially these positive psychology interventions were the first to actually get a cohort of people. There were 50 people, and they positively primed them with a session that we created for Sean, which is on our platform. And what they did was they literally gave them a brand new piece of information, and then they did a recall test, and they did that priming test. And what they the research is there for you to have a look at. We've got a statement, but they gave them like these words where there were only 3 letters, and everybody had to fill in the answers, and there was 50 people in this part of the actual experiment. And those that had been positively primed provided a positive response. more
Yeah.
quickly. 6 hours later. And so Sean was the first person who came back to me and said, you know, Kimbo, you can take a paracetamol. It works within 30 minutes. And basically the effects drop off after 4 hours.
Yeah.
That's not a long-term effect from a science point of view. Yours works within a couple of minutes. We can see that, but we need biomarker testing. So we need EEG, but we also need to do it in a lab, and it needs to go through ethics approval.
Mm.
And in America, that's very expensive. And so I started to look for who could I partner here with in Australia to do this research. And these are the kinds of things I want our positive prime practitioners to know, because I think that it makes everybody feel very comfortable and competent and calm and confident about the way that you position positive prime. But Erin, to your point, this particular extraordinary man who is involved in some very large organizations here in Australia and has been an HR director in some of these very large organizations. His verbatim words to me yesterday was, and he may be near retirement age, he said, and he's very happy to help me, right? So he's happy to pick up the phone and introduce me to people and have me go present Positive Prime. And he said to me, you know, I've just read one presentation document that we've been putting together for the corporate world. And just on that one presentation document, with all I've seen in my 5 decades in HR, I would get up off my chair, walk down the hallway and say, this is something we need to introduce. And I haven't felt this compelled about anything that affects performance
I haven't felt as compelled about anything, and I'm a qualified emotional intelligence assessor, and I've got, you know, many friends that are, you know, leaders in that, and but what I see is that the people in the corporate world go and do that, but they themselves are are traumatized from the environment that they work in. And so they learn all that and they go away and nothing happens and nothing change. They don't change. So they go back into the same environment with the same thinking. And really, if we don't change our thinking, nothing changes. You know, you can't achieve anything if you're still going in with the same brain. You can go and do 1,000 courses like I've done, or 1,000 programs. But the one thing I will tell you, and my biggest problem with CPTSD is my ruminating brain, and I've only been doing this, I think, 4 or 5 days, although I've done quite a few sessions. I do 5 in the morning and 5 at night.
Wow.
I am actually waking up without rumination, and when I do, I actually go, I'm PP'd, go away. And it works. PP is what I call it. PP'd. I'm PP'd, go away. And I just think of some of the images I've seen. Now, I've not had a tool to be able to, it doesn't matter, you know, how many books I've read by Dr. Eric van der Kalt or Gabor Mate, or all the programs I've done with some of the biggest leaders in the world. You can't think your way out of trauma, and everybody has some form of trauma in their life. So yeah, my questions are too many, and I'll catch up with with Donna after I've had time to digest, because yeah, I really see that this is the future, and the future's now. So
thank you, Erin. Do you know, we had somebody in a meeting just the other day, and I showed them the momentum that's already being created. So there was somebody in Boston along with Donna. Her name's Michelle. She's actually a Canadian. She's a gold medalist Olympian, and she has had every opportunity you can possibly have. Her husband is also a medalist and an Olympian, and her daughter is also a world champion. So from a sports psychology point of view, really interesting. She has an incredible TED talk. And she is personally friends with Ellen Langer. And I don't know if you know who Ellen Langer is from Harvard, but her very famous clockwork study was about taking a group of people and putting them in an environment and understanding the epigenetic influence of the environment if all the magazines are from a couple of decades ago, and you've got an old-fashioned TV there, and you've got old-fashioned radio there, and it's playing old, so historically this experiment was perfect. It was extremely expensive. And then they did this longitudinal study, and then they had everybody, they did eye tests, and they did flexibility tests, and they did strength tests, and they did all sorts of, biomarker testing, blood pressure, cholesterol, etc. And then they went through this experience where not one of them was treated from a placebo effect and from a nocebo effect, right? So not one of them was treated as if they were 80. They were treated as if they were 40. So when they expected somebody else to pick up their suitcase, nobody picked it up, because a 40-year-old man is more than capable of picking up their own suitcase. And so they weren't helped. They weren't like mollycoddled, no cotton wool. Anyway, long story short, Michelle, after spending the time with us in Boston, reached out to a woman who is a New York Times bestselling author in America on retirement. Speaks on all these stages, is in her late 60s, and her husband was going to get some groceries during COVID and never came home, and he was accidentally killed in a high-speed chase by the police, and the first responders held him in his final moments. And she then decided to devote essentially a fortune to buying a property, and it's not a health retreat, it's not a mental treatment facility, it's like literally just a place for first responders to come and relax and recover and just have some time out and so forth. Anyway, her name's Catherine. So all of a sudden, Michelle and Catherine have reached out to another woman named Chris, who has a marketing agency, and they've created this little video. I could actually show it to you. And this little video, they showed during a presentation in Los Angeles last week. And all of a sudden, people in the audience purchased Positive Prime, essentially knowing that if they purchased Positive Prime, we at Positive Prime would gift 10 first responders.
Yes, I like that.
So
Yeah.
what's fascinating is that it's going to end up having a life of its own.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, we actually want to enable everybody, but at the same time, there are so many really capable people who are in this community who are out there harnessing what we've got, leveraging it, and coming up with these ideas that they can give to everybody else about what's working, what's not working, right? And as we go through each one of these pathways and applications and case studies, we're learning lessons. And so we want to be able to cultivate those and share them.
Yeah.
Hey, do this. Hey, don't do that. And from my perspective, there are people who are super generous, like Brett D. Scott's a guy in our community, and he made a lot of effort trying to get to know the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress in Brisbane over a period of time. And then after I met them, I went to a social function, actually, that Donna was at. I sent them a very formal email. Hi, this is who I am. Yes, I was introduced to you through Brett. I didn't say, hey, Brett, I'm going to reach out and send a message to the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress. And interestingly enough, the Lady Mayoress picked up the ball and threw it to the Deputy Mayor, who happens to be a woman who sits on the board of Small Steps for Hannah, which is the domestic violence movement based in Brisbane. And I went to this meeting last week, and it took months and months and months and months and months. And Mamie can tell you, they literally changed when I was meeting them 5 times to move me around in the schedule. Then they told me I had 25 minutes and I had to present to a group of people the Positive Prime story and the value of it. And the most extraordinary thing is everybody's pitching everything with respect to Brisbane and the Olympics and, quite frankly, economic development. And Positive Prime is so special. I think it is. We're Australian, that they've said yes.
Mm.
I mean, it's amazing.
I think what you've created is it's a global game changer. And you know, nobody in the world gets to escape some form of trauma, and corporate career people, you know, they go home at night and they're absolutely drained and exhausted. I know, because we do 60, 70-hour weeks. And I'm excited. I can't wait to catch up with Donna soon, and she'll answer some more of my questions and really work out. I want to become I'm clear, I want to be involved. I really do. I just
Thank
and
you.
I have a big network. I you know, I'm quite well connected, and I just can't wait to sort of really start sharing it, to be honest.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So
Do you know, it can happen rapidly.
yeah.
And given who you are, I'm pretty sure that you'd be the kind of person who reads the resource, right? And then
Yes.
you'll go down your own rabbit holes and go, okay, so what's that really? There is one of the things about Dr. Esther Sternberg and Dr. Gregory Frachon, they were introduced to our community, and they were the ones that gave me, I would say, something more sacred than anything, and that was my own faith in the potential of positive prime because of who they are and the way that they received me and the effort that I've gone to for more than a decade to create something that is affordable and accessible and has the UX and UI.
Yeah.
And it has cost me millions of dollars. And quite frankly, it's not like I can afford to buy any Christmas presents for my family. But there's something inside of me that knows that it's worth it.
Oh,
And the world needs this.
Yeah, I agree. Look, you know, I'm just going, wow, I've got all these hundreds of people that thousands of people that I'm connected to. And even if I just put out a post and said, if you could create confidence in 3 minutes a day, would you do it? And I reckon people would just be signing up like that, because nobody's got time. You know, so over Christmas, I'll be catching up with some quite well connected friends of mine, and I'm really excited about the you know, talking to them and
Thank
just.
you. Let's create magic.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
Donna is
haven't
the
felt
kind of person.
excited for years.
Oh, that's. Okay, so do you know who's just joined us? Do you know I
No.
literally was just telling you about Michelle Cameron Coulter, the Olympian? She literally I just let her into the room.
Yeah.
Michelle, we've just been talking about you. So, like, as you get to know me, you'll know that this is no word of a lie or exaggeration. So I'm in a meeting with Michelle and Catherine the other day. Catherine's in her late 60s. She won't mind me telling you that because she's very open and honest about it. And she wants to take it out there to the retirement world. And she's speaking at this huge conference in Vegas in a few weeks' time. Anyway, after this meeting, I had a couple of quick questions I needed to ask in order for our team to actually get to work. And so I picked up the phone and I WhatsApped Catherine. And I said to Catherine, can you please just tell me, like, what's the motivation here and what's the agenda and what's the best that you want from us? And she just said to me, Kim, I do not know why, but this is the greatest game changer I've come across. And then she tells me this huge story that on her board of directors, Michelle, you can confirm and deny all of this, but anyway, on her board of directors is the coroner who was involved in that terrible tragedy, you know, where there was flash flooding in Texas and the children were all camping. And he has just reviewed Positive Prime, thinks it's a game changer. And then on her board is actually somebody who is involved in the first responders longitudinal study, who was one of the key firefighting leaders of the 9/11 tragedy. Who literally, I think, who may have poured fuel on this fire, because his reaction when Catherine showed him. And so Catherine basically went out and said to everybody in her board of directors and initial community, can you please buy Positive Prime and can you please use it? And then she came back to me. I had some ideas. with Michelle, and we were like, well, Michelle can probably get, you know, some of these Olympic movement people who are all talking about, you know, the next phase of their lives involved and their relevance and all of this kind of stuff. And then we came up with this idea, like, for every one that's purchased, why don't we gift 10 to first responders through Catherine's charity in Colorado? And the next thing you know, Catherine goes and does a presentation, as she would normally do, with park rangers who are all, and I don't know if you've seen the new Netflix series that's around this park ranger, who they're also the police officers in their national parks. You would know this, Shirley. Most of the park rangers are actually like they're first responders. They're everything. They're the EMS and they're the firefighters and they're the, you know, police, aren't they? Yeah, right. And so who could have known a couple of weeks ago that all of a sudden we'd have all these people who are involved in the US park rangers professional environment actually interested in this tool? And you know what they loved about it, Erin, more than anything? That no one would need to know.
Yeah.
That they were in the toilets or they were in the car or they were at the coffee shop having their lunch. No one would need to know that they're positively priming themselves. And there isn't this EAP aspect where even though the actual data is de-identified, there's still a performance review fear.
Yeah. Well, look, I spent a very long time of my career in the contact center industry with managing thousands of people. And the biggest challenge all those frontline people have is the abuse they get on the phones now, the abuse. And so people are leaving the industry in droves because they can't cope with the abuse. Now, if they had a tool that could help them, you know, I just look, you know, as I said, I'll catch up with Donna, and after I've really...
You'll have a look, you'll read, you'll think.
I'll have to really, but I'm excited for this. And I definitely want to be involved.
And irrespective of anything, just know that we appreciate you being a member.
Yeah, well, look, I appreciate the opportunity to become a member. So that's what I appreciate. And I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that because Donna's dog likes my dog, we got to meet.
Well, do you know what? That's how we've gone from a couple of hundred people to a couple of thousand people and soon to tens of thousands of people, right? So thank you. And look, Donna is a beautiful spokesperson for what it is that we're doing. She believes, she cares deeply, but she cares deeply in you and everybody else, right? First and foremost. So true, isn't it, Donna?
She's there, I can see her now. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you, Kim. I've really enjoyed this. And
okay, perfect.
I'll organise getting myself signed up so I can do it.
And we'll look forward to looking after you.
Thanks.
All righty. Magic is about to happen. So for those of you who want to stay, we'll tell you a couple of other things that are going on at the moment. I referred to Lisa Barnett. In this world, one of the things that we have been trying to figure out is how do we get the word out there and how do we automate what's going on with Positive Prime to a certain extent. We've had a couple of really failed attempts at creating advertising campaigns either on Instagram or Facebook, and we've never even, you know, done anything really amazing in Google AdWords, etc. So it's almost like we're a secret. Nobody really knows about Positive Prime yet. Interestingly enough, we would get this feedback from the marketing agencies that we were working with. And one of them was when we don't have any solid science and so forth. So anyway, we went and did that. And that actually took us more than a year to get through the ethics approval process at UTS. So it's not something that can happen like quickly. And so then Lisa was telling me about some other people we really respect. And these are big names who've got big profiles and big followings, and they will launch a new book and they'll become a New York Times bestseller. And so Lisa was having lunch with one of these people in San Francisco. She had enough courage and I think was vulnerable enough to say, hey, can you tell me Who's your marketing agency? How do you do it? And why do you do it? Anyway, long story short, over the weeks leading up to Boston and then post Boston, we've been going through this process with this global agency, and we've been really digging into Lisa's numbers. So Lisa actually went through a process where she created this marketing campaign, and it was an incredible success. And she held her breath, and she wasn't sure, and she was a bit nervous, but the person who recommended had also had outstanding success. But it's a long-term project, and it can't happen overnight. And so what we've actually been doing is we've been gearing ourselves up for what does it actually require for us to engage this particular agency. And in all of our efforts to date, no one has ever wanted to talk to us about performance-related reimbursements or remuneration or sharing the revenue, because no one wants to, quite frankly, I think, put their money where their mouth is, and they promise these incredible results and they can't actually achieve them. And so slowly but surely, where we've been at with Lisa's team is working with them on them really understanding what it is that we're doing and making sure that whatever we create, we own at Positive Prime. And some of the other agencies that we've worked with in the past, they may have created a funnel or marketing assets that they then have owned, and we haven't been able to access or use or leverage, and the insights haven't been ours. But much more importantly, there hasn't actually been the visibility. So we haven't been able to log into an account and see, is the traffic really arriving on our page? And what is the actual clicks and click-through rates and conversion rates and so forth? And so we're at this really exciting time where we lead into 2026, and we've actually got what Jack and I would call like the last piece of the puzzle sorted and a trial ready to begin. And so we needed to make sure that we had the AI version of it available before we could get them to be really excited that we have something so amazing that we can make a splash in the online marketplace, and that we actually have the infrastructure and the processes and the systems in place. And so now we're ready. We're ready to actually make sure that we drive traffic, we go through that acquisition process, we have really good quality ads, we've got a funnel that actually does work, and that we optimize it, and we get to apply all the lessons, but now we get to do so with an app, with the research, the credibility, the integrity, and everything else that we need. So I do think that Positive Prime is in a exciting era leading into 2026. And I am so grateful that we're still here. We have survived, we're alive, and we get to do this. And we get to do this and hold our head up, and we can be proud of what it is that we're doing. And I'm sure that I'm going to get to be able to tell Donna that we couldn't possibly have ever expected that a lovely lady named Erin would show up to this meeting today and share with us some, fresh perspectives, some observations that are brand new, and that would be so very affirming and encouraging, don't you think? Yeah, I think so too. Any questions before we go? Oh, you're there, Donna, you heard me say, so thank you. Thank you. It's a bit like, there's no way we could have known what Michelle would end up doing with Catherine and how she'd involve Chris, and to our collective benefits. Absolutely no way we could have created something so amazing. Do you want to see the gorgeous little video that they created for the first responders promotion?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Then we'll make sure that Mayumi sends it out to all of you. It is just the most fabulous little 1 minute, and she did it all basically off her own back, and then sent it to us for approval, and then refined it. And Chris is just She's a gem. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you for the massive leap of faith, but also the massive action that you've been in.
I just want to say it's been such a gift, honestly, to be able to, I'm covered in goosebumps to be able to spread the word and like expand this team. And you're right, Chris is such an angel. Like she's so brilliant, and everyone that I've talked to just wants to dive in and do whatever they can. So that's pretty amazing. It says a lot about everything you've done for all the years leading up to. And I really do. I think I said this before. I think we're on the precipice, and I feel like I can't, like the timing for Boston was such an incredible gift. And now to see what's happening, like when you mentioned Catherine, like every time we're talking 2 or 3 times a day, and she is just like on fire about all the things that we get to do, literally. So thank you for having the vision. And I'm just grateful in such a
Well, I mean,
massive
the
way
truth
for
is,
the ripple.
I love you saying that, but maybe here's my final message. We need you and everybody else here to be in action. Donna has literally been referring people over the last couple of days, and every time that happens, it fortifies us and it makes us feel fantastic, and it gives us the energy to just, you know, that extra step, because we're such a small team with so few resources, and it literally helps, and it helps keep us going. And I don't mean just financially, and it's not a figurative thing. It fortifies us. It keeps us and the foundation strong. And so we can, you know, keep going. So Michelle, Donna, thank you for being here. Lucy, I think, has been here. She's been here for a very long time, many, many, many years. So has Sharon with her sister, Susan. I'm sure that they'll be watching this. I can see there's somebody else here from Hawaii, and I cannot wait for all of us to get together again. So part of what we're trying to do now is really refine our ideas around 2026 and how not to do another thing like Boston, but how do we maybe show up together in Mexico or Thailand or somewhere, and how do we just say, hey, this is where we're going to be, and those of us who can be there show up. You book your own accommodation, you know, come to the restaurants if you want, the bars if you want, the dance clubs if you want, I don't know, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, what can we do? Because I think that one of the things about Boston that we are very sure about is our relationships with each other, and the community that we are is actually the sweet spot. It's the humans we are and who we're attracting. That's what's really quite phenomenal. And Michelle, I want people to understand what it is that you've done with Catherine. And I want Donna to know the details and the intricacies and the whats and the whys and the hows, because she can take that and run with it. But then guess what? She's going to run with it doing something else, and then you're going to benefit. And I think that's the secret sauce for what's happening. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing with this potential marketing agency if not for the fact that Lisa Barnett has already paid the price of taking the big risk of testing them out with an enormous amount of her own money, and how that's actually ended up involving Positive Prime. So I think that there's this deliciousness that each of us can offer when we can just all be very human and together and share our stories. And until we're physically together, I think we do that in these classes as we go through this certification program, and we break in, and the perfect example might be Donna and Michelle. You present to each other who Dr. Barbara Fredrickson is and what the broaden and build theory is, right? And when you two can explain it to each other perfectly, break out, we create another twosome. I think it's this that we need to do in our certification. And that's why I've essentially said, you don't need me to teach you anything. What we need is to work together to apply it. That's the truth. Now, go out there and play with the AI vision creator and literally do it with your other family members or your other friends and just see the reactions. And it will seriously surprise you, I think. It is way funnier together. Like, maybe you want to show them the moment that I had with my brother and my nephew this week. Irreplaceable. A magical memory that's really meaningful. And the way that I saw my brother then share those photos, so he immediately asked me to right click, save as, send the photo to him, via SMS. So I did. Guess what he did? He forwarded it to his wife. And he said, oh my gosh, look at this. Look at what Kim's platform's just created. Look at this. Look at your son. Right. And I realized in observing and witnessing that what Jack and I have really worked on is how do you ignite people so that they can believe in the beauty of their dreams. Hey, Michelle.
Kim, can I hop in for a second?
Yeah.
Can I hop in for a second? We did an amazing event yesterday, the day before, I think it was, the $1 billion marketplace auction where entrepreneurs share what they're doing, and then half the proceeds go to a charity. And at the very end, she has a spinning wheel who gets to present. And at the very end, we presented, Catherine did, Positive Prime, we did together. And 7 or 8 people purchased the Positive Prime. And we said we're going to do a class for them, like a fun class, so they can learn how to use it. And then that means what 7 of them bought, that means like 70 first responders yesterday are going to be receiving. So, and we're going to do like a class for them. And to your point, so much fun when you get to do it together and play and see. Like I said, it's like if you have a cell phone and you only know how to call somebody, but when you have Positive Prime and you know how to play, and so we're going to play and have them create and then do like a 5-day little fun activation challenge where every day we're doing a little something and they're sharing and they're sparking the excitement for each other when they see like, oh my gosh, like exactly what you were saying about with your nephew, was it? Like that, it's just so much fun to see that come to life. So doing these little group classes or playtime, isn't like some sort of playtime, and then everyone gets to actually create together and share, and that creates such a beautiful momentum.
I couldn't agree with you more. And do you know, I think that that's actually what ended up landing with me this week. And Jack noticed it in my voice. All of a sudden I felt more playful and more lighthearted, and I felt more excited. But because I was actually having more fun and play. And Mayumi can tell you the truth, right? Jack, in the demo, showed a photograph of Mayumi, one that he basically created because he hadn't yet given us access and he hadn't pushed it through for Mayumi and I to play inside our own accounts before we pushed it to everybody else, right? Anyway, so Jack showed Mayumi this photograph of her in Paris eating a croissant and having a cup of coffee. Now, Mayumi, can you unmute yourself and just tell everybody what you felt, like honestly what you felt when you saw that photograph?
Yeah, I honestly felt like before I'm not really good with visualizing. Sometimes my brain is like, oh, this is not realistic. This is not something that you can achieve. But because of the AI photo that Jack created for me, it became easier for me to, imagine that I could really be there in Paris and sitting in a cute cafe and yeah, eating really yummy pastries and more. Not only Paris, but other places that I would like to explore.
I appreciate it. And tell me the truth. Oh, look at Jack go. Instant, right? So, Mimi, when you saw that, did you feel excited? Did it excite you?
Yeah, not only excite, but it filled me with hope, like hope in the future for all possibilities.
Oh, did you hear that, guys? That it makes me cry what positive prime can do. It makes me cry thinking about it. Now, we're going to tell you another story. There is a member who's a teacher, and she literally did an experiment with a group of senior school students on what it is that they wanted to be able to do when they completed their university degrees, and then showed them in the photograph as a radiologist or as a roboticist or as a botanist, like the ideas these kids had, but they're not kids. They're already young adults at 17. I tell you, it totally captivated Jack and I as we heard the story and we realized the potential. So, you know, to the point that we were making before about nervous system regulation, but if nervous system regulation can happen whilst we're actually literally nurturing hope and excitement. And for those of you who want me to give you the cheat sheet, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson put a whole heap of people into a functional MRI machine, and on the screen had images that elicited an emotion, and they basically coded the emotions. And when people felt a movement, like a recovery from negative to positive, and depending upon how fast, the MRI showed the parts of the brain that literally it looked like there was a theatrical tropical thunderstorm lightning, but the areas of the brain that were active were the areas of the brain that lay down new memories. That's why it could be brilliant for reinforming trauma, right? So what psilocybin does to the brain, positive prime highly likely also does to the brain. What EMDR does to the brain, positive prime probably. Now, we didn't need to do our own functional MRIs, but that's not the point. The point is the broaden and build theory has been reviewed, it's been challenged, it's been re-examined. Like Barbara Fredrickson is a genius, and everybody in her circles and all of her peers believe she's also a genius. But every single time we get this feeling of joyful hopefulness and creativity and positivity, what happens inside our brain enables us. And it's called the broaden and build because what they actually then did was they put these people in a moment of crisis. And these people got themselves out. So if you've got a cyclone and people are experiencing a moment of crisis, if people aren't positively primed and resilient and they don't have cognitive flexibility, they're likely to go outside and stand on the landmine or on the live wire if the electricity poles have come down, because guess what? The broaden and build theory has been proven to improve your peripheral vision. So you do see more. And that's what's so remarkable. But Dr. Barbara Fredrickson tried lots of ways to make sure that she could create the effect in people. And the fastest way was by showing them photographs of Duchenne smiles. And that is why we have a high ratio of Duchenne smiles in a positive prime session. Because when I read all the research and I met with Dr. Barbara Fredrickson in Sydney a couple of years ago, I asked what was the key component, the outcome that needs to be applied and available to real people with real lives who are facing real problems. That's, I can't pay my bills. That's, my daughter's in the hospital and I'm afraid. That's, my son has just been through something, or my daughter's been like, our lives means that we cannot inoculate ourselves from trauma or drama or stress or fear or pain or grief. It's going to happen. But if we don't have brains that can reset, we put ourselves in further danger. And that's why the broaden and build theory applied. I don't want you to know that there's such a thing as a broaden and build theory. I want you to know that you're putting a tool in somebody's hand that literally expands their peripheral vision. Like, how incredible is that? And for somebody who's recovering from, say, TIA or stroke, do you know how important that is? So the consequences and the implications of what we've got here in our hands at Positive Prime, we're never going to be able to explain everything to anyone in 3 minutes or in one time little video or in one class. But slowly but surely, each aspect of Positive Prime gives us something to work with depending upon who we're faced with and who we are serving. And I think that's actually the thing I'm committed to more, is the more we know about it, the more we can be who we need to be in the face of the person we're serving. That's what your TEDx is all about. Exactly. Letting go of perfection and playing. And for somebody who grew up with parents, one in particular who was so pedantic and such a perfectionist, and I ended up with this extraordinary fear of getting something wrong. It stopped me from trying in case I got it wrong. And that's a crime. But had I not done Anthony Robbins' Life Mastery University program, like the entire program 28 years ago now, right? There's no way I could have been who I needed to be. Not possible. Just not possible. But I had to let go of either being right or being kind, or being right or being in relationship, or being right and being innovative, or being right or being courageous, or being right and showing up in London with no friends and no roof over my head and no food in my mouth, and figuring out how the hell I was going to actually like get through the week, right? I've got to tell you, I think that what we've got in our hands is really, really, really valuable, but we really, really need lots of people out there talking about it. And I have personally been struggling with, should we even require there to be a certification? Should we actually have Jack create a piece of software in the first 6 months of next year that allows any teacher, any therapist, anyone to create their own Positive Prime session and publish it so that they can use it with their own students or their own clients? Now, that doesn't mean they get to publish it on, you know, the positivity feed, you know, on the platform. But there's all of this old school thinking about how we can't water down the intellectual property, but in the process, we probably keep it at bay, and the numbers of people who can benefit from it are diminished because we just didn't let the floodgates open. But how do we let the floodgates open and stay responsible? And how do we make sure that people don't go and misrepresent it? And how do we make sure that nobody engages in any deceptive and misleading conduct? Right? There are so many aspects for us to think through properly before, as we've led a horse to water, we let it drink. But if it's drinking poison, we're in trouble. And so I've been trying to dial back, what do we do so that it's ethical and moral, and so that we have some North Stars in place. Jack has been an incredible thought leader in this space as well. And all of you contributing has literally made us jump over a hurdle or go around the bend or try to see beyond the next curve. Like, what is the problem we're creating for ourselves that we don't even know about yet, because we can't know what we don't know? And then who do we go and find who might know, who will be generous enough to provide us with some answers without the judgment attached to it, or without the expectations attached to it, or without the demands attached to it, you know? So it's been incredible, really, really incredible the last couple of weeks. And I never would have, I don't think I ever would have known the magnitude had I not had the opportunity to spend time with Gregory Frishone and Esther Sternberg. And I shouldn't single out those two people over and above Bob, because I idolized him for freaking 20 years. But the point is, I literally now absolutely, like, I get it, what's happening in the HPA axis. And it's because Esther explained it in such a way, but the questions she asked caused me to place myself in the wondering why she's asking me that. What does she see that I don't even know what she sees based upon who she is? Which made me dive even deeper into who she is and what is psychoneuroimmunology and what does that have to do with positive prime, because they can see something way more remarkable than we can see. And if we don't see it, we'll undercook it inadvertently because of our own unconscious biases and conditioning, right? Yeah, it is. Thanks, Donna. It is. And Mayumi, the video that we have of the TED Ed and the rats and the HPA axis, can you confirm we first used that in a certification program more than 5 years ago, correct? Yeah, it was more than 5 years ago.
Yeah, I need to double check him, sorry.
That's okay. I love that you say that. See, always checking the truth. That video has definitely been a part of our resources. I don't know, it's got to be at least 5 years, but here's the truth. I have a new lens. So I watched that video again for like the 10th time in 10 years and saw and heard a completely different message based upon who I am now versus who I was then. And I literally had one of the biggest ahas of my life. It was extraordinary. So, yeah, I'd love to see that video. Yeah, it's an awesome video. Alrighty. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope this has been worth it. Shirley, any questions? You sit so patiently. No, you just agree with it all. You're happy with it all. Awesome. Sharon, have you been cooking and eating and everything else like that? Hey, Donna, come on out, because here's the truth, right? Trauma literally elicits the stress response. It's the way that the hypothalamus and pituitary axis is actually bringing up memories, images in your head, right? And what that does in terms, and see, I didn't even know that Esther started her specialism as an immunologist. That's why she has the insight she has, because she's an immunologist, right? So she got into integrative medicine from an immunology point of view. But had it not been that she had some rather extreme flare-up in rheumatoid arthritis and were she not an actual GP doctor, originally in her own practice, she wouldn't have literally had the light bulb go on in this research that she was doing and her own conditions and symptoms. And she literally is the human who discovered the HPA axis's interaction with the immune system from a scientific point of view in such a way that she could replicate the studies to prove that there was the link. Like maybe traditional Chinese medicine doctors knew about this 5,000 years ago. You and I both know that's true. They probably did. Or Ayurvedic doctors, because all of that medicine started up there in the Himalayas and then it kind of filtered out, you know, eastward and became traditional Chinese medicine, and it filtered out southwards and became Ayurveda, right? But quite frankly, that whole area had this knowledge from these medicine men 5,000 years ago. And it was probably the same kind of knowledge that we saw in the Amazon or in Papua New Guinea and these other places that you couldn't actually travel to or from in one lifetime. But it took Esther Sternberg in modern medicine proving it in such a reliable way that it could be replicated. And people went, oh my God. So had not for her work, we wouldn't actually know that the stress response does impact the immune system. But had she not known what psychiatrists were doing, like Dr. Gregory Frachon, from an evolutionary point of view, they wouldn't have understood that the safety mechanism, psychological safety, feeling like your life is not threatened either because, and I often think about this, the woman whose husband has an affair who leaves, if she's reliant on him for her roof over her head and the food in her mouth and her children's school fees, she goes through just as much trauma from a literal biological perspective for the threat response, because her life is in danger because she perceives an extramarital affair, if in the unconscious and superconscious she's actually got this belief that her security comes from her husband. It's not trauma with a big T. It's trauma with a little t all day, every day, for every single human we possibly know. Everybody's gone through a divorce. Everybody who is going through grief. Everybody who's been diagnosed with, but what I don't think that the whole world understands is that every autoimmune flare-up is because of what started in the brain. Because I didn't even know that. I didn't know that a dysregulated nervous system has got nothing to do with what's rational and what's logical and what we believe and our thoughts. It's got everything to do with the way our eyes process threats in the environment that we're in. That's the news we watch. That's the advertisements we see. That's the television shows we consume. That's the drama and the trauma our friends talk about when we're having cups of coffee and they're bitching and moaning and groaning and complaining and everything else like that, right? The impact is, and the repercussions. And we wonder why there are unprecedented rates of dementia and cancer and autoimmune diseases. But all these people have to live a real life. Not every single one of them can leave their family or leave their job. Not easily. Right? Not easily. So we have to give them a tool that they can use inside the crisis. Because not very many of them can get out of it. And then the more and more and more I dive down into what's going on in the world of domestic violence, the more I realize that that is all day, every day trauma, not with a big T. It's not a war zone. We think of it not like Ukraine, but it's worse. It's unbelievable. A diagnosis that you don't think you can beat because you don't know how to. Big T, little t. Feeling like you don't know what to do or study at university because what's the point? Because will AI actually have a job for you? What our children are going through who are 17 right now. Big T or little t. Now, positive prime isn't the answer to everything. But it's just one tiny little answer for a frigging couple of $100. And quite frankly, most of us spend more on a pair of shoes. Right? That's kind of where I come from. Don't make positive prime be something it can't be. Just let it be what it is. It's more than enough. Just like all of us. Ciao. Love you all. Bye.